ClearIAS. I am Dr. Ramyasri NPC, an educator at ClearIAS. UPSC has the habit of asking questions based on geographical locations that have appeared in the news in recent times for the preliminary examination. One or more questions are asked from this area every year. In this video, we are discussing about important international places that have appeared in the recent news. As usual, let's start with some of the previously asked questions.
Question number 1. Which of the following has or have shrunk immensely or dried up in the recent past due to human activities? 1. Aral Sea, 2. Black Sea, and 3. Lake Baikal. Select the correct answer using the code given below. Here the answer is option A, that is 1 only, Aral Sea only. In the second question, rivers and their destinations are given and you have to find out the correctly matched pair. This question was asked in the 2020 preliminary examination. Here the answer is option C, that is 3 and 4 only. Volga River flows into Caspian Sea and Zambezi River flows into Indian Ocean. Mekong River does not flow into Andaman Sea but into the South China Sea. And Thames River drains into the North Sea. Question number 3 is to find out the correctly matched pair. Here, regions sometimes mentioned in news are given which have to be matched with their corresponding countries. This question was asked in the year 2018. Here, the answer is option C, 1 and 3 only. That is, Catalonia is a place in Spain and Mindanao is an island in Philippines. Crimea or the Republic of Crimea is not a part of Hungary, but it's officially a part of Ukraine. It is separated from Russia by the narrow Kerch Strait. The last one, Oromia, is a regional state of Ethiopia, which is a landlocked country in Eastern Africa. Mediterranean Sea is a border of which of the following countries? This question was asked in 2017. The countries given here are Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon and Syria. Here the correct answer is option C, 3 and 4, that is Lebanon and Syria. Mediterranean Sea is bordered by 21 countries including Lebanon and Syria. Now let's see important places of international importance that have appeared in recent news. 1. KURIL Islands. This was in news because Japan's diplomatic blue book for 2022 has described the KURIL Islands as being under Russia's illegal occupation. Japan calls these KURIL Islands as the Northern Territories and Russia as the Southern Kurils. These are a set of 4 islands situated between the Sea of Okhotsk and the Pacific Ocean near the north of Japan's northernmost prefecture, Hokkaido. Both Russia and Japan claim sovereignty over them, though the islands have been under Russian control since the end of World War II. Post Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Japan has elevated its claim over the KURIL Islands. The second one is Falkland Islands. This was in news because recently Britain rejected a statement from China that affirmed its support for Argentina's claim to the Falkland Islands. Falkland Islands are also called Malvinas Island. This is an internally self-governing overseas territory of the United Kingdom in the South Atlantic Ocean. It is located to the southwest of Atlantic Ocean at the southernmost point of South America. It is positioned both in the southern and western hemispheres of the Earth. Even though it's an overseas territory of the United Kingdom, Argentina regularly protests Britain's occupation of these islands and claims sovereignty over these. The third one is Solomon Islands. This was in news because recently the US said it will open an embassy in the Solomon Islands, laying out in unusually blunt terms a plan to increase its influence in the South Pacific nation before China becomes strongly embedded. Solomon Islands is a nation in Melanesia, east of Papua New Guinea, comprising more than 990 islands. Its capital is Honiara, located on the island of Guadalcanal. These islands have been inhabited by Melanesian people for at least 30,000 years. It consists of a double chain of volcanic islands and coral atolls in Melanesia. The fourth one is CHAGOS Archipelago. This was in news because recently the Universal Postal Union decided to ban British stamps from being used on the CHAGOS Archipelago. The CHAGOS Archipelago is an island group in the central Indian Ocean, which is located about 1,600 kilometers south of the southern tip of the Indian subcontinent. It is an overseas territory of the United Kingdom. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to find it, and it was then settled by the French in the 1790s and transferred to British rule after the Napoleonic Wars. In 1965, Britain separated the Chagos Islands from Mauritius and set up a joint military base with the United States on Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia is the largest of 60 small islands comprising the Chagos archipelago. Britain insists the islands belong to London and has renewed a lease agreement with the United States to use Diego Garcia until 2036. But Mauritius has argued that the Chagos Islands has been a part of its territory since at least the 18th century, and Mauritius called the UK an illegal colonial occupier after it ignored a UN-mandated deadline to return the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. Next is QEQERTAQ AVANNARLEQ. This is a recently discovered island off the coast of Greenland. It's a tiny, uninhabited and previously unknown island, measuring 60 into 30 meters and with a peak of 3 meters above sea level. It has now become the new northernmost piece of land on Earth. Before this, UDAC was marked as the Earth's northernmost terrain. The newly discovered island is 780 meters northwest of UDAC. Next is the blue blob. This was in news because a recent study theorizes that the blue blob could slow glacial melting until 2050 by temporarily stalling the melting of Arctic sea ice. The blue blob is an unusually cold patch located south of Iceland and Greenland in the North Atlantic Ocean. This patch was most prominent during the winter of 2014-15 when the sea surface temperature was 1.4 degrees Celsius colder than normal. Next is Gaza Strip, which was in news in relation to Israel-Palestine tensions. Gaza Strip is located between Israel and Egypt. Israel occupied this strip in 1967 but relinquished control of Gaza City and day-to-day administration in most of the territories during the Oslo peace process. In 2005, Israel unilaterally removed Jewish settlements from the territory, though it continues to control international access to it. Gaza is governed by Hamas, which is a Palestinian Islamist political organization and militant group that has waged war on Israel. Israel and Egypt tightly control Gaza's borders to stop weapons getting to Hamas. Next is West Bank. This is again an area of dispute between Palestine and Israel. It's a landlocked territory near the Mediterranean coast of Western Asia, bordered by Jordan to the east and by the Green Line separating it and Israel on the south, west and north. The West Bank also contains a significant section of the Western Dead Sea shore. Israel took control of this land in 1967 and allowed Jewish people to move in, but Palestinians consider the West Bank illegally occupied Palestinian land. Next is Golan Heights, which is a disputed territory between Israel and Syria. The Golan Heights is a rocky plateau with an area of 1,800 square kilometers on the border between Israel and Syria in the southwestern Syria. Israel occupied the Golan Heights, West Bank, East Jerusalem and Gaza Strip in the 1967 Six-Day War. Syria tried to retake the Golan Heights during the 1973 Middle East War, but Syria was defeated in this attempt. In 1981, Israel permanently acquired the territory of the Golan Heights and East Jerusalem in moves never recognized by most countries. Next is Al-Aqsa Mosque. This was in news because recently tensions flared up at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque between the Palestinians and Israeli police as part of the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is one of Jerusalem's most recognized monuments. The site is part of Old City of Jerusalem, which is sacred to Christians, Jews and Muslims. It has been the most sensitive site in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as both sides have made rival claims over it. Next is Damascus Gate area. This was in news because since the start of Ramadan 2022, Israeli forces have assaulted and arrested Palestinian residents in the Damascus Gate area. The Damascus Gate or Bab al-Amud or Gate of the Pillar has been a flashpoint between Palestinians and Israeli forces in occupied East Jerusalem for a long time. This is one of the main gates of the old city of Jerusalem. The gate is located in the wall on the city's northwest side. Next is ADDU Atoll. This was in news because President Ibrahim Mohammed Solih has said that the Maldives has made no decision on opening an Indian consulate in its southern ADDU Atoll. ADDU Atoll, which is also known as Seenu Atoll, is the southernmost atoll of the Maldives. Apart from being a strategic location in the Indian Ocean, ADDU is the second largest city in the archipelago, which is home to over 30,000 people. Next is Strait of Hormuz. This was in news because recently 4 commercial oil tankers were sabotaged near the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz is the waterway that separates Iran and Oman, linking the Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. The strait is 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, but the shipping lane is just 3 kilometers wide in either direction. On the north coast of it lies Iran, and on the south are the UAE and Musandam, an enclave of Oman. Next is the Taiwan Strait. This was in news because recently, amid the escalating tensions at the Indo-Pacific, a guided missile destroyer belonging to the US passed through this strait. The Taiwan Strait is a 180-kilometer wide channel that separates mainland China from the island of Taiwan. It is also known as the Formosa Strait or the Thai Sea. This strait makes up part of the South China Sea, and its northern portion is linked to the East China Sea. The strait borders the southeastern part of China and runs along the eastern part of China's Fujian province. The whole of the strait is located on Asia's continental shelf. Next is Suez Canal. This was in news because Egypt has increased transit fees for ships passing through the Suez Canal with hikes of up to 10%. The Suez Canal is an artificial sea-level waterway running north to south across the Isthmus of Suez in Egypt to connect the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. This canal separates the African continent from Asia. It provides the shortest maritime route between Europe and the lands lying around Indian and Western Pacific Oceans. It is one of the world's most heavily used shipping lanes, carrying over 12% of world trade by volume. Next is Baltic Sea. It is positioned in northern Europe and is bordered by 9 countries. Sweden, which is a part of the Scandinavian peninsula, Finland, Russia, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Germany, and Denmark and its numerous islands. It's an arm of the North Atlantic Ocean. It is artificially linked to the White Sea by the White Sea Canal and to the North Sea by the Kiel Canal. It includes the Gulf of Bothnia, the Bay of Bothnia, the Gulf of Finland, the Gulf of Riga, and the Bay of Dansk. It is the largest expanse of brackish water in the world. This was in news related to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which enable Russia to transport natural gas directly to Western Europe. Nord Stream Pipeline 2 is a system of offshore natural gas pipelines running under the Baltic Sea from Russia to Germany. Next is Black Sea. This was in news because during the recent invasion, Russia has prioritized dominance of the Black Sea as well as the construction of a land bridge connecting Russia and Crimea. Black Sea was also in news because of the sinking of the huge Russian warship MOSQUE. The Black Sea, which is also known as the Euxine Sea, is one of the major water bodies and a famous inland sea of the world. This marginal sea of the Atlantic Ocean is located between Eastern Europe and Western Asia. It is surrounded by the Pontic, Caucasus, and Crimean mountains in the south, east, and north respectively. The Turkish Strait system, the Dardanelles, Bosphorus, and Marmara Sea forms a transitional zone between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. The Black Sea is also connected to the Sea of Azov by the Strait of Kerch. Black Sea is bordered by Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, Turkey, Bulgaria and Romania. Next is Mariupol. It was in news recently because an official from Ukraine has said that the Russian offensive against Mariupol has turned the city into ashes of a dead land. Geographically, Mariupol forms a land bridge between Crimea, which was annexed by Russia in 2014, and Donbas, which is a separatist-held region of Ukraine. In 2014, the then Ukrainian president had declared Mariupol the regional capital of the oblast after Donetsk fell to rebel forces. In 2016, it also became a city of solidarity as termed by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, welcoming internally displaced people from the contested territories. Next is WHAKAARI or White Island. This was in news because a new research detects pre-eruption warning signals at WHAKAARI or White Island and other active volcanoes. WHAKAARI or White Island is a volcanic island located in the Bay of Plenty, 50 kilometers offshore of North Island in New Zealand. It has been New Zealand's most active volcano since 1976. This stratovolcano or composite cone volcano formed out of the convergent plate boundary between the Pacific and Australian plates. It is made of layers of andesite lava flows and pyroclastic deposits. It is an active volcano at the top of a submarine vent at the northern end of the Taupo Rotorua volcanic zone. Next is HUNGA-TONGA-HUNGA-HAAPAI volcano. This volcano erupted in the southern Pacific island of Tonga, which triggered tsunami waves around the Pacific recently. The Tonga Islands occur along the Ring of Fire, which is a perimeter of heightened volcanic and seismic activity that encircles the Pacific Ocean basin. It was an undersea volcanic eruption consisting of two small uninhabited islands, HUNGA-TONGA and HUNGA-HAAPAI. These volcanoes have erupted regularly over the past few decades. Next is Mount Aso volcano, which erupted recently. Mount Aso is the largest active volcano in Japan and one among the largest across the world. This volcano stands on the island of Kyushu in Aso-Kuju National Park in Kumamoto Prefecture. Next is KILAUEA volcano. Recently, a surge of earthquakes and the ground swelling at the southern part of the crater was noticed at Hawaii's Kilauea volcano. Kilauea is an active shield volcano in the Hawaiian Islands. Historically, it is the most active volcano of the 5 volcanoes that together form the Big Island of Hawaii. Mount Kilauea's slopes merge with those of the nearby volcano Mauna Loa on the west and north. Next is DARVAZA gas crater. Recently, Turkmenistan president has ordered experts to find a way to extinguish a fire in this huge natural gas crater. The DARVAZA gas crater, which is popularly called as the gateway to hell or the doors of hell, is a cavern formed by a burning natural gas field near Darvaza in Turkmenistan. It is located in the Karakum Desert, 260 kilometers away from Turkmenistan's capital Ashgabat. The crater has been burning for the last 50 years. It is 69 meters wide and 30 meters deep. Next is KATCHATHEEVU Island. This was in news because recently some fishermen from Tamil Nadu were arrested by the Sri Lankan Navy near KATCHATHEEVU Island for crossing the international maritime boundary line. KATCHATHEEVU is an uninhabited islet in the Park Strait that was formed due to volcanic eruption in the 14th century. This 285-acre land was owned by the Raja of Ramanathapuram. Later, it became part of the Madras Residency. During the British rule, it was administered jointly by India and Sri Lanka. This island is strategically very important for fishing activities. In 1921, both Sri Lanka and India claimed this piece of land for fishing and the dispute remained unsettled. Next is Agalega Island. It is an island in Mauritius, which is located about 1,000 kilometers north of the archipelago's main island. It was in news because some reports said Mauritius has allowed India to build a military base on this island. However, Mauritius has now clarified that no such agreement exists with India. Carmichael Mine was in news because it has begun shipping coal through an Indian multinational. It is located in the North Galilee Basin of Queensland, Australia. Next is Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Facility. It was after seizing control of the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Facility, Russia halted Ukraine's supply of electricity. Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant is located on the banks of the Dnieper River. It is one of the 4 operating nuclear power plants in Ukraine and has been operating since 1984. Also, it is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. Next is Ramna Kali Temple. This is a Hindu temple located in Bangladesh. It was recently inaugurated by President Ramnath Kovind. It was destroyed by Pakistani forces in 1971. The original Ramna Kali Bari was built during the medieval era and was famous for its tall structure. Next is Gandhi Green Triangle. A green triangle named after Mahatma Gandhi was jointly inaugurated in Madagascar's capital Antananarivo. This naming was done as part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav to commemorate India's 75th year of independence. This Gandhi Green Triangle would create the maximum green space in the capital city of Madagascar, Antananarivo. Next is Bagram Air Base. Recently, the last US and NATO forces have left Afghanistan's Bagram Air Base, the center of the war against militants, for some 20 years. This air base is located next to the ancient city of Bagram in Afghanistan. Next is Last Ice Area. Recently, a part of the Arctic ice called Last Ice Area has melted before expected. This area is located north of Greenland. While climate projections forecast the total disappearance of summer ice in the Arctic by the year 2040, the only place that would be able to withstand a warming climate would be this area of ice called the Last Ice Area. Scientists had believed this area was strong enough to withstand global warming. WWF Canada was the first to call this area Last Ice Area. Next is Mes Aynak site. The Taliban regime in Afghanistan has said it would protect the ancient Buddha statues in Mes Aynak. Mes Aynak site is 40 kilometers southeast of Kabul, Afghanistan, located in a barren region of Logar province. Mes Aynak contains Afghanistan's largest copper deposit as well as the remains of an ancient settlement with over 400 Buddha statues, stupas and a 100-acre monastery complex. The site's orientation on the Silk Road has yielded a mixture of elements from China and India. Next is Barbados. Recently, Barbados has officially removed Queen Elizabeth II as its head of state and become the world's newest republic nearly 400 years after the country became a British colony. Barbados, however, will continue to be one of the 54 Commonwealth nations. Barbados is a small island country in the southeastern Caribbean Sea. Its neighbors include Saint Lucia to the north, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines to the west, and Trinidad and Tobago to the south. It's a part of Caribbean Community or CARICOM, which was formed in 1973. Next is Rasasa Lake. Iraq's Rasasa Lake is littered by dead fishes that have turned the once fertile lands into a barren desert. Rasasa Lake is also known as Lake Mill. It is a man-made lake which is located between Iraq's governorates of Anbar and Karbala. It is the second largest lake in Iraq and is part of a wide valley that includes the lakes of Hobaniya, Tartar and Bahar al-Najaf.
So, we have seen most of the important international places that have appeared in the recent news. See you with another important revision topic in the next video. Thank you.